After hearing his punishment for Angie Stone's murder, Clive Davis passed out in court. At least, the internet claims that. However, how did we arrive here? A missing memoir, an automobile accident, years of silence from the biggest names in music, as well as deepfake videos. Was Angie attempting to reveal before she passed away something? What caused her hard disks to vanish? Moreover, why is Clive's name currently being removed from the heritage he established? They don't want you to know this story. Let's get started. Clive's encounter with Angie. Clive Davis wasn't merely a music executive. He was the type of person who signed performers. Legends were created by him. Houston, Whitney. Joplin, Janis. Keys, Alicia. The instant he had faith, your career wasn't simply promising. It was bound to happen. He managed well-known brands such as Columbia, and for more than 50 years, Arista influenced the fundamentals of American pop and R&B. His reputation? Untouchable. His impact? Worldwide. However, beneath the platinum records and red carpets, there has always been a darker aspect to the industry, one that goes beyond business. It has to do with power, authority, and occasionally, treachery. Additionally, at the heart of one of the most enigmatic and terrible Angie Stone is one of the chapters of his story. What happened to one of the most adored neo-soul singers? Displeased with the man who shot her? What exactly went wrong in their relationship? And why are some now questioning whether her unexpected death has anything to do with Clive Davis? Angie Stone didn't become famous right away. Prior to her becoming well-known in R&B, as a part of the Sequence, one of the first hip-hop groups, she was shattering barriers. In the late 70s, female rap groups were the first to sign with a big label. She was tough. She had a past. Above all, her voice sounded both fresh and old at the same time, unfiltered, spiritual, having a gospel foundation but a funk and soul fusion. Following years of employment in the background, writing, backing vocals, working together, she eventually entered the spotlight with Black Diamond, her first solo album, released in 1999. Not only was Black Diamond excellent, but it was also evocative, haunting, and unabashedly black. Traditions in music. It was Davis, who was then in charge of Arista Records, who gave it the boost it needed. Required. The album went gold, and the song, "No More Rain in This Cloud," became an R&B mainstay. Davis was aware of his actions. He recognized in Stone an opportunity to bring back the soulful mood of the old school, but presented in a manner that seemed appropriate for the new millennium. And it worked for a time. It was praised by critics. It resonated with fans. Angie was at last receiving the credit she was due. J Records followed. Davis established his own label after being fired from Arista. In 2000, with a strong roster and a fresh start, he had Stone with him for the journey. In 2001, she released her second album, Mahogany Soul, which was more ambitious still. It included the melancholy song, "Wish I Didn't Miss You," which was based on a sample from the mesmerizing, agonizing, and slow song, Backstabbers, by the O'Jays. It never left the culture, even if it didn't reach the top of the charts. Remixes were spun by DJs. Clubs in Europe revered it. It was revered by soul enthusiasts. It was Angie at her most innocent, and some would argue, her best. However, something changed. Slowly, the same man who had influenced her career began to distance himself. As Alicia Keys and other up-and-coming musicians flourished under Davis's tutelage, Stone was marginalized. Years later, interviews imply resentment, disappointment, and even treachery. She didn't simply lose support from the industry, she felt forgotten. And although she never stopped speaking, the spotlight did. How, therefore, did this heyday become chilly? Why would someone with hundreds of millions of dollars like Clive Davis and given credit for developing talent ever wind up being mentioned in passing in relation to Angie, the untimely death of Stone? More unsettlingly, was it merely a rumor? Or did something actually do they have a dark relationship that the industry still doesn't want people to know about? From professional rivalry to suspected homicide. Angie Stone passed away on the morning of March 1st, 225 at the site of a vehicle collision outside of Montgomery, Alabama. News organizations called it a tragic accident, alleging that her car overturned on a wet road and was hit by an approaching truck. However, a few hours after the announcement, an unforeseen event occurred, something that the internet was shaken. The official narrative was not being accepted by fans. They started posing queries, discovering movies and making connections in a manner that seemed more like a digital research as opposed to only grieving. And what they thought they had discovered ignited among the most outrageous conspiracies in the contemporary music business. That Clive Davis, her death was caused in part by the renowned record executive who formerly supported Angie Stone. It sounds like a crazy theory. It wasn't unexpected, though. Individuals referred back to red carpet snippets, years of interviews, and behind-the-scenes video that has been disregarded for a long time, but now felt unsettling and full of fresh significance. One specific video from in less than 2 weeks, the 2,233 Vlad TV interview had over 18 million views. In it, Angie talked openly about her early days at J Records while seated on a plain black couch. As she talked about feeling shelved, ghosted, and thrown away, the warmth in her voice vanished. She described how Clive Davis, who used to be her staunchest ally, stopped responding at all when she sought support for her subsequent endeavors. He succeeded. Evident that I was no longer the top priority, she remarked. She didn't sound angry. It was insubstantial. A few snippets of that same interview revealed her blinking quickly, stopping in the middle of a sentence, clearly emotional. She said, "They tell you they love your voice. But they don't love you." Viewers at the time took that to be the typical heartbreak in the industry. However, those words were analyzed like coded messages after her passing. A few users began posting slower versions of the videos with blurry effects and subtitles, giving the impression that it is a warning. Was she attempting to convey a message to us before it was too late? Too late? One video inquired. More than 3.2 million people liked that clip alone. When individuals started uploading previous award shows, the theory gained even more traction. Appearances and drawing comparisons between Alicia Keys and Angie's treatment, who was managed by Clive Davis as well. Songs in a Minor, the debut album by Alicia, was published in 2001 by J Records, a few months before to Angie's release. Soul of Mahogany. Despite both albums receiving high praise from critics, only one gained significant industry support. That year, Keys took home 5 Grammys. Angie was not even nominated. It was chalked by some. Suitable for many audiences and genres. Others, however, noticed something else, a well-thought-out choice by Davis to put money into a younger, more marketable individual who is more in line with mainstream R&B trends. Angie didn't fit that formula because of her incredibly soulful tone. It was more than just prizes. Budgets for promotions, press appearances, and even the timing of an album's release indicated that Alicia should come first. Additionally, when Angie's projects received less funding, soon, she started to fade out of the public discourse. She kept putting out tracks, and her following continued to be devoted, but it was obvious that something had changed. Clive Davis, the man who used to refer to her as having a timeless voice, stopped answering her calls. In this is referred to as being shelved. In the music industry, when a label signs a musician, then ceases subtly endorsing them, it's not against the law. However, it's frequently disastrous. The secrecy surrounding Angie's passing was even more dubious because of how rapidly the authorities how little Davis had to say when the story went viral. As other artists' tributes poured in, for more than 3 weeks, Clive Davis refrained from speaking in public. When he did release one at last, it seemed to have been written by a public relations team, was brief, and was impersonal. The news of Angie Stone's passing saddens us. She had artistic talent, and we appreciate her sharing the music. That was that. No picture. No memory. No reference to their collaboration. This simply fueled the suspicions of fans who were already wary. The rumors spread. A few mediocre YouTubers posted what they claimed to be exclusive intelligence from unidentified sources. In the early 2000s, one claimed to have worked in law at J Records. They said that Angie had received repeated warnings not to publish a memoir she was writing. Another said that 6 months ago, the memoir's manuscript was taken from her Atlanta home. Prior to the collision, these statements were not independently confirmed. However, that was irrelevant to the audience. In the era of artificial intelligence-generated pictures, edited audio snippets, and falsified court records, the sensation of truth frequently outweighed the facts. According to legal observers, no charges had been brought. The Montgomery Police Department declared the collision to be unintentional. Reports from toxicology were clear. Officially, no foul play had occurred suspected. However, the outcome was different in the court of public opinion. For many, after decades of development, Clive Davis had emerged as the antagonist of a tale, a formidable someone who employed artists, then threw them away and, when they were no longer needed, erased them. Fans of Angie Stone started planning online memorial protests, and her songs made a comeback. The charts. Frame-by-frame analysis was done on her interviews. Also, Clive Davis, who was once thought to be untouchable, was now portrayed as a dark character in one of the most well-known R&B deaths. Past. Forums were overflowing with theories. Was Angie preparing a court case? Had she made a threat to make private emails public? Did she have any recordings that would prove her betrayal? We might never find out. One thing is certain, though: Angie Stone's passing did more than just shatter hearts. It ended the quiet. And in doing so, it revealed a sector that profits from dominance, quiet, as well as picture control. One straightforward query still stands even in the event that no charges are ever brought in court. Why did Angie Stone receive the treatment that she did? And who stands to gain if we never find out? The Court of Public Opinion. Legacy on trial. Angie Stone tributes appeared on TikTok, Instagram, and other platforms almost immediately. Twitter as well. They weren't merely sentimental farewells, though. They were phone calls to take action. Songs the industry tried to bury and Justice for Angie are two playlists that fans made. This swiftly started to trend on Apple Music and Spotify. Streams of Angie's catalog soared, especially among younger listeners who were unfamiliar with her. I wish I hadn't missed within 72 hours. You achieved 1 million fresh plays. Both musicians and influencers started releasing snippets of her interviews, award speeches, and live performances, portraying her as a woman who had been structurally marginalized in addition to being a fantastic artist. The story was unmistakable. Angie Stone was hidden rather than just forgotten. In the meantime, the tributes started to lose mention of Clive Davis. Artists who had previously started altering previous Instagram photos, eliminating hashtags that referenced him in their award speeches, and he was commended. A few authors and producers that had collaborated with him on his labels released cautious, well-written declarations highlighting their autonomy. One Grammy-winning performer merely shared, "I can see everything now." Many people thought that Davis was the target of the phrase, "We were never free." Discussions on the internet described his practice of endorsing artists with lighter skin tones, more financially viable or crossover-friendly, often at the detriment of those who have a stronger connection to historic black music genres. Videos of Davis saying frank things about market patterns started to come up again. In a panel discussion, he described neo-soul as a genre that doesn't chart. In the early 2000s, at the time, the remark was seen as practical and business-minded. Now, the video has been shared again with captions such as, translation, "We didn't want to invest in pop-style black performers." The video became a lightning rod. The audience wondered if these bias, or strategy, formed the basis of the decisions. Was control the main factor, or was money? Unverified rumors that Angie Stone had been writing a memoir added fuel to the fire. Throughout her last year of life, screenshots from a purported email were published by 2 entertainment gossip websites. Leaks asserting that Angie had given the project the title Unheard. Although no publisher has provided confirmation, the mere notion of the manuscript's existence was enough to spark conjecture on the internet. Some admirers think the memoir was intended to reveal years of denial, deceit, as well as abuse within J Records. She was going to speak, according to one widely shared tweet. Then she had left. Is it a coincidence? Nobody has offered hard proof that the memoir was authentic. However, many people reframed Angie's death as suspicious simply because of the possibilities. Clive Davis was known as the man who made stars for many years. Today, whether that is fair or not is irrelevant because he is the man who may have destroyed one. As much as the reality that this story is already underway. The life of one artist was cut short. Someone else's real-time legacy disintegration. Nobody anticipated that power change in the music industry. What remains after Angie's departure? According to reports, Angie Stone was working on a significant project just before she passed away. Several close friends and coworkers claim that she had been penning a Unheard, a private memoir. They said the working copy was unpolished, intimate, and without filtering. It purportedly discussed her emergence in neo-soul, her early days in hip-hop, and most shockingly, her encounters with Clive Davis and J Records. According to several insiders, it was a warning, not just a memoir. And if that's the case, then the quiet around Angie's death assumes a whole different meaning. What if there was someone who wished for that book to never be published? Rumors about Unheard began as whispers but soon gained momentum. One partner, after working with Angie in Atlanta, a vocal coach, informed a music site that she said that she put all of her energy into it, calling it the project that would set her free. However, Angie's house was broken into 6 months prior to her passing. Jewelry was not taken by the robber. Money or gadgets. Rather, the police report states that the only things that are missing were a notebook and 2 external hard disks from her home office studio. The intrusion was never connected to something larger and was initially handled as a minor. However, looking back, supporters have focused on this particular time as possibly crucial. How come you just take the drives? Her longtime personal assistant shared a mysterious Instagram tale at that time. Without a caption. It displayed the text overlay, a broken window, and an empty shelf. The tale was barely live for 24 hours, but fans said, they know what they took. Took a screenshot of it, and presented it as purported evidence that someone wanted Angie's data deleted. Since then, the assistant has refrained from speaking in public, whether it was due to paranoia, grief, or something else entirely. Next is the purported song. According to a music blogger covering unreleased R&B songs, they were submitted a 30-second sample of a song that isn't on any of Angie Stone's official albums. The blogger said that the line was in the chorus and characterized it as eerily direct. The song was purportedly titled, at the top, "I gave them my soul, they gave me silence." The audio recording is not accessible to the general public, and the excerpt has never been verified. However, this story became viral among fans. People are now beginning to wonder, what if it's all true? If there was a manuscript, if even a portion of the unheard tales are true, internal label politics were exposed in files or audio, this might have a profound impact. Clive Davis, despite being respected by the profession, he would be at the heart of not merely a cultural reckoning rather than a relational crisis. He wouldn't be the only one affected. Other civil cases may be brought against executives, producers, and collaborators listed in Angie's files. Depending on what those records disclose, internal inquiries or even criminal exposure may result. It would be more than simply a scandal,